各位傳媒朋友，大家好，歡迎嚟到私隱專員公署嘅記者會。
影完先俾聽片啦，
好，我哋可以開始之前影幾幅相先啦。或者我上一層口罩。
好，上一層口罩係啊。
我就影到個光環。sorry 啊。梗係你啦。
我講我健康啊，你揾食㗎。我呢度先，呢度1、2、3呢度啊，1、2、3。有咩咁多嘢講？冇你我冇啊依家。係跟住隔離呢度啊，係呢度唔該。5千、14千、3千7。仲有一張我問佢。好，多張。多謝。好，一齊中間先。係呢度中間先啦。我呢度啊，呢度左邊。
好，左手邊係唔該。
我起身啊！係。好，讀聽你。邊個做啊？係呢度啊，多錢咗。
我放呢度啊。
我嚟多次啊，左邊嚟啦，唔該。好。
好，做 cam 啦。
多謝大家，我再一次歡迎大家嚟到個人資料私隱專員公署嘅記者會。今日嘅記者會主要以廣東話進行，當中亦都會有英文摘要，最後就會係答問時間。Today's media briefing will mainly be conducted in Cantonese with an English synopsis, then followed by a Q&A session. 好，我哋睇。咁而家我哋將時間交俾我哋私隱專員鍾麗玲女士，有請專員。May we now invite our Privacy Commissioner, Ms. Ada Chong, please.
早晨，開咪。
有支咪嘅咪。
早晨，各位傳媒朋友，大家好。咁啱過咗農曆新年啦，都仲係新正頭。我喺呢度咧就恭祝大家兔年係身體健康啦，工作順利啦，事事如意啦。兔年行大運，咁接住落嚟咧，我係會簡介私隱公署喺2022年嘅工作，同埋會發表一個咧調查報告。咁
有干擾喎，支咪。
點有？
支咪唔係幾好喎，有啲干擾喎。我換咗支咪佢。
會唔會攞手機好啲啊？咁樣得唔得
？OK。
咁呢個簡介會嘅第一部分咧係會以中文進行嘅，咁之後咧就係會以英文進行。咁我係會以英文咧係作出一啲重點嘅介紹。咁最後咧係歡迎傳媒朋友咧係提問嘅。Good morning, friends from the media. Happy Chinese New Year. I wish you a very healthy, happy, and joyous Chinese Year of the Rabbit. Thanks for coming to this media briefing. Today, I will be reporting on the work of my office, the PCPD, and an investigation report into a data breach incident. Today's presentation will be divided into two parts. The first part, which would last for about 40 minutes, will be presented in Chinese. And the second part, which would highlight the more important parts of the report, will be conducted in English. So for those of you who speak English, please bear with me for a while. And I will start with the first part of the presentation. 回顧翻2022年咧，其實我哋嘅工作喺保障個人資料私隱方面咧，係面對好多嘅挑戰嘅。大家都會記得啦，其實喺2021年，我哋係修訂咗私隱條例，係引入新嘅係起底嘅刑事罪行，咁同埋亦都賦予私隱專員咧係有新嘅權力。咁我等陣間咧係會詳細係介紹下去年2022年咧我哋工作嘅成果。咁大家都記得啦，舊年咧就係第5波嘅疫情，咁而因應疫情所引起嘅個人資料私隱議題咧，亦都係非常之多。咁舊年我哋亦都係俾咗全面嘅意見，同埋提供咗一啲指引，例如有關呢個疫苗通行證啊、安心出行啊。就僱主第5波係收集僱員嘅個人資料，我哋亦都係發出咗指引嘅。咁因應社交媒體嘅廣泛應用啦，咁我哋亦都喺舊年咧係發出咗呢個社交媒體私隱設定嘅大檢閱嘅報告。報告入邊咧係檢視咗10個香港咧係最常用嘅社交媒體喺私隱設定方面嘅表現。並且向呢啲用戶咧係提供咗係點樣去保障個人資料私隱嘅實用建議。 咁隨着人工智能咧越嚟越普及，當中帶嚟嘅私隱風險咧，亦都係唔可以忽視嘅。咁亦都因為機構咧嘅數據咧就越嚟越多數碼化啦，咁亦都我哋睇到咧係私料外泄嘅事故咧，亦都係一路咁樣係有上升嘅趨勢。咁所以咧，我哋喺舊年嘅8月咧，亦都係發出咗一個資訊同埋通訊科技嘅保安措施指引。以下落嚟咧，我係會介紹下有關我哋執行私隱條例嘅情況。喺查詢方面咧，喺2022年咧，我哋係接獲係超過14000宗嘅公眾查詢。咁14000宗嚟講咧，其實喺相對2021年咧，係下跌咗大概15%。咁如果係話每個月我哋係處理幾多宗公眾查詢咧，大概係1200宗。咁換句話講，每日咧就大概係60至70宗嘅公眾查詢。咁主要嘅類型咧，就喺呢個投射片嗰度咧就羅列咗出嚟，就包括咧，譬如話收集同埋使用個人資料，例如係香港身份證號碼啊，或者係香港身份證嗰個副本啊。咁呢個咧大概係佔總共查詢嘅數目咧係28%。咁另外咧就係有關條例嘅應用啦，處理同僱傭關係相關嘅個人資料嘅私隱議題啦。另外就係有關我哋嘅投訴嘅政策啦。咁喺個人資料防騙方面咧，我哋睇到咧，其實舊年咧係有個案係有上升嘅趨勢。咁所以我哋喺舊年9月咧，就係設立咗一個個人資料防騙熱線，係處理關於個人資料嘅查詢啦，或者投訴。咁呢個防騙熱線咧，係截到10月底咧，係一共收到168個來電嘅。咁我等間都會係舉一啲例啦，係比較係顯著嘅例子咧，同大家分享嘅。咁而喺全年2022年嚟講咧，我哋係一共接獲咧707宗有關套取市民嘅個人資料係作詐騙用途嘅查詢，就比2021年咧係增加咗26%。咁呢個增幅咧都係比較多。咁我覺得咧，我哋都係要關注呢個個人資料嘅詐騙個案。咁所以今年嚟講咧，我哋都係會做多啲呢方面嘅工作。投訴啦，大家會睇到呢個圖表咧，就顯示咗2020、2021同埋2022嘅投訴數字。咁喺2022嚟講咧，我哋係處理咗咧3848宗嘅投訴個案。咁投訴個案對比翻上一年咧係有15%嘅升幅嘅。咁呢個升幅咧，主要嚟講咧，大家會見到啦，就係因應我哋處理起底嘅案件咧係多咗。咁點解多咗咧？因為其實我哋收到嘅投訴咧係有關起底嘅個案咧，亦都係多咗嘅。咁呢個咧，我相信同我哋係因為係實施咗呢個修訂條例之後啦，咁我哋做多咗係一系列嘅宣傳啦、教育啦，咁市民知道多啲有關起底呢個罪行咧，咁自然咧佢哋係對我哋係提出譬如話投訴嘅個案咧就會多咗。頭5位私營機構被投訴嘅對象，咁呢個咧就係羅列翻啲界別出嚟啦。咁你會睇到咧，其實最多投訴嘅咧就係物業管理界別啦，跟住就係銀行同埋金融業、電信業啦、零售業啦同埋保險業。咁物業管理點解會咁多咧？第一位咧，咁我哋嘅觀察咧就應該係因為咧疫情嘅關係，咁令到物業管理界別咧係處理大量嘅個人資料，譬如話包括訪客嘅個人資料啊、住戶嘅個人資料啊，或者甚至外賣員嘅個人資料。咁所以咧投訴個案咧自不然又多咗啦。去到循規審查啦，喺循規審查嚟講咧，2022年咧， 我哋係進行咗392次嘅循規審查，數字咧係較2021年咧係略略上升咗4%。咁而喺2022年咧，我哋係收到咧105宗嘅資料外泄嘅通報，其中41宗咧就係由公營機構係通報嘅，另外64宗咧就係私營機構係通報嘅。咁大家會睇到呢個圖片啦，其實資料外泄事故咧好多時咧係涉及黑客入侵啦。咁你哋會睇到，譬如涉及黑客入侵同埋唔見咗文件或者便攜式裝置，即係 USB 啊咁樣咧，係總共係超過一半嘅。咁而另外嗰啲種類咧，就係譬如話經傳真啊、電郵啊，或者係郵件意外披露個人資料，僱員違規啊，即係冇跟公司嘅政策做啦。譬如話將個 USB 或者將個電話嚟做公司嘅嘢，咁結果咧就引致一啲資料外泄啦。咁另外咧就係系統錯誤嘅設定啦。講到處理起底嘅個案啦，處理起底嘅個案嚟講咧，其實係喺2021年10月修訂咗私隱條例之後咧，至到2022年年尾咧，即係12月尾咧，我哋係一共處理咗2128宗起底嘅個案。咁呢個數字咧係包括咗我哋收到嘅投訴啦，同埋我哋主動係巡查、調查、發現嘅個案。咁而我哋係收到嘅投訴個案入邊咧，我哋係作咗一個分析。咁呢個圖表大家會睇到啦。如果係涉及金錢糾紛同埋家人或者感情糾紛嘅咧，其實都已經超過咗一半。咁呢兩項咧係各佔28%啦，同埋27%。咁至於工作糾紛同埋政見糾紛咧，就比較嗰個比率係細啲，就各佔咧係14%。咁呢個就大致上嗰個處理個案嘅性質嘅分類啦。咁直至係舊年嘅12月尾，我哋咧係就114宗個案係展開刑事調查，並且係將32宗個案咧係轉介警方係處理。咁點解有啲個案要轉介警方處理咧？因為咧呢啲個案咧係涉及一啲第二啲嘅罪行，或者係涉及咧係較嚴重嘅起底罪行。咁而同期嚟講咧，我哋係展開咗12次嘅拘捕行動。咁呢個拘捕行動咧喺2021年嚟講咧就有1宗拘捕行動啦。喺舊年2022年嚟講咧就有11宗拘捕行動嘅，就包括去年咧就5月份咧，我哋同警方係作出咗一個聯合行動嘅。咁12次嘅拘捕行動入邊咧，係一共有12位人士咧係被捕。好啦，被捕人將事主起底嘅原因，咁我哋呢度咧就將12宗個案咧係作出咗一個分析。咁你會睇到咧，金錢糾紛係啱啱一半，12宗入邊咧有6宗都係金錢糾紛。工作糾紛就另外1/4啦，感情糾紛都有2單嘅。咁其中一單咧就係政見嘅糾紛，煽受煽暴啦。咁途徑點樣去將佢起底咧？其實12宗入邊咧，絕大部分11宗咧都係經呢個社交媒體平台啦，同埋即時通訊軟件係將呢個受害人起底嘅。咁只有1宗咧就係通過呢個譬如連街招嗰個個案入邊咧，就嗰個被告係連街招係將個受害人起底嘅。就住呢12宗拘捕嘅個案咧，我哋喺5宗入邊咧，其實係已經將被捕人係落案起訴噶啦。咁而喺2宗入邊咧，被告咧就已經係裁定罪名成立。咁呢個數字咧係去到12月底嘅。其實去到今時今日為止咧，就一共有3位被告咧係已經係被定罪噶啦。咁而被判刑嘅咧就有1位。咁大家都知啦。呢個判刑咧就喺12月度判刑嘅，咁而被告咧係被判8個月嘅即時監禁。 咁8個月嘅刑期咧，私隱公署咧係歡迎呢個判刑嘅，因為呢個判刑咧突顯咗咧起底係一個嚴重嘅罪行，咁而亦都係可以引致咧係即時監禁嘅。咁至於其他已經落案起訴嘅案件咧，仍然咧就喺司法程序係處理當中啦。停止披露通知啦。咁大家都會記得喺修訂條例之下咧，私隱專員係有權咧係發出停止披露通知，要求一啲平台咧係移除起底嘅訊息。咁呢個去到12月尾咧，我哋一共係向26個平台啦係發出咗1500個停止披露通知。咁涉及嘅咧係超過17000個起底訊息。咁而嗰個遵從率咧係超過90%嘅。咁呢個遵從率咧都係比較好嘅，咁樣亦都可以好開心咁講咧，即係雖然我哋嗰個移除通知咧，好多時都係向一啲海外平台嘅經營者發出，咁但係佢哋咧都係有依隨我哋嘅要求咧，係移除起底嘅訊息。去到推廣、宣傳同埋公眾教育啦，咁喺舊年嚟講咧，因為疫情嘅關係啦，咁我哋嗰個公眾教育活動咧，其實都時不時受到疫情嘅影響。咁但係咧，我哋都繼續咧係除咗面對面嘅講座之外咧，亦都舉辦一啲網上嘅講座。咁全年嚟講咧，我哋係舉辦過313次嘅講座啦、研討會啦。咁而參加嘅人次咧係超過28000人。咁喺社交媒體嚟講咧，我哋亦都係發出咗咧係376篇嘅貼文。咁除咗執法之外咧，其實我哋咧喺打擊起底方面咧，亦都係推出咗一系列嘅宣傳同埋教育活動。譬如包括咧係接受電台、電視嘅訪問啦，係拍一啲宣傳片啦，亦都係有一個譬如電視台嘅短片啦，電台嘅廣播片啦。亦都係發出一啲單張咁樣去宣傳有關呢個起底嘅條文啦，同埋係我哋打擊起底嘅工作。咁而舊年嚟講咧，我哋係進行咗18場有關修訂條例嘅講座嘅。加強宣傳防騙信息，咁呢個都係一個好重要嘅工作。咁喺加強宣傳防騙意識方面咧，我哋係特登咧係推出咗一個專題嘅網站。咁網站嘅內容咧就有好多，譬如話防騙嘅 tips 或者係常見嘅例子或者係一啲教育嘅資訊，同埋一啲有用嘅資料，有啲有用嘅連結或者有啲譬如包括警方防騙站嘅連結咁呢個咧喺我哋嗰個防騙嘅網站咧都係包括在內。咁另外咧，我哋亦都係去到咧探訪，譬如老人院咁亦都係派發防疫物資之餘咧，亦都係派呢啲防騙嘅單張，希望可以提升老友記係防騙嘅意識。咁其實私隱公署咧就一路與時並進，我哋亦都就唔同嘅私隱議題咧係發表一系列嘅指引，包括咩咧？跨境嘅資料嘅轉移啦，喺在家工作安排之下點樣去保障個人資料私隱啦？咁亦都係就住物業界別咧，因為佢有咁多投訴咧，我哋亦都更新咗我哋嘅指引。咁另外咧就係呢個資訊同埋通訊科技方面咧，我哋亦都出咗一個保安措施指引。咁呢個咧就應對翻呢個資料外泄嘅事故咧，我哋見到咧都時不時有發生。另外咧，我哋公眾教育宣傳嘅工作咧，亦都包括咧係推廣咧保障兒童嘅私隱。咁呢個喺保障兒童私隱方面咧，舊年咧我哋係成功舉辦咧我哋一個旗艦活動啦，就係保障私隱學生大使學校夥伴嘉許計劃。咁呢個活動咧係吸引超過60間中學啦，係16000名嘅中學生係參加嘅。咁而呢個活動咧，其實都舉辦咗一個設計比賽，就係全港中學生手機 game 應用程式設計比賽。咁呢個比賽一共係收到咧係超過400名中學生提交嘅作品。咁而舊年咧，我哋亦都另外咧係為咗小學生咧，亦都推出咗一個尊重私隱由我做起嘅短片創作比賽。咁呢個咧就而家仲舉行緊。咁我哋一共係收到咧超過300位小學生咧嘅作品係參加呢個比賽嘅。咁而喺舊年咧，我哋係就住小學嚟講咧，我哋都推出咗一系列嘅講座，係提升咧係學生上網嘅警覺意識啦，同埋係防止網絡欺凌。咁而呢個活動咧係吸引咗超過8000個小學生，係嚟自30間小學嘅小學生參加嘅。咁喺呢個環節咧，我係會作出一啲個案嘅分享。第一個個案咧就係一個防騙個案。防騙個案咧就係網上情緣。咁我哋嘅防騙熱線咧就收到呢個女士嘅電話啦，就係話咧佢喺網上高識咗一位外籍嘅男士，其實係一位伊朗籍嘅男士。咁佢就對呢個男士咧係發生咗感情。咁由於呢個男士表示咧就係想送一啲禮物俾佢，咁所以咧呢位女士咧就向呢位男士咧係提供咗佢個名啦、住址啦，同埋佢嘅電話號碼。咁呢位女士俾咗呢啲資料之後咧，佢就收到一個好似係一個物流公司嘅短信，就話俾佢聽咧呢份禮物咧就喺阿富汗嗰度係被扣押咗。咁而呢位女士咧就係要俾28,000蚊嘅美金先可以贖翻呢份禮物。咁所以呢位女士咧就覺得有啲唔妥啦。咁佢咧就擔心佢嘅個人資料咧已經係被非法咁樣係盜用，或者係作為一個非法嘅用途。咁所以咧佢就打電話問我哋。咁我哋收到電話之後咧，當然啦，我哋就提醒翻佢啦。呢個咧都係一個網上情緣常見嘅例子。咁變咗咧，我哋亦都提醒佢咧，就唔好再同呢位人士咧就有咩瓜葛啦。因為咧，其實有關嘅男士咧，如果收咗錢之後咧，就會即係失咗蹤噶啦。咁而呢位女士咧，亦都向我哋表示，如果物流公司只係要求佢俾幾千蚊嘅話咧，佢係會即刻俾錢嘅。咁所以喺呢個個案入邊咧，其實呢位女士都相當醒目。咁喺佢未俾錢之前咧，就首先問我哋。咁所以我哋咧都係阻止咗呢個騙案嘅發生。另一個騙案咧就係有關核對個人資料啦。核對個人資料嚟講咧，就呢有一位男士啦，就打電話去我哋嘅防騙熱線啦，就話俾我哋聽咧，佢收到地產公司職員係嘅電話。就表示由於政府嘅房屋政策咧係有改變，咁所以咧佢就要核對呢位男士個名啦、住址啦同埋身份證號碼。咁呢位男士咧就其實覺得時有 QK， 即係點解無端端收個電話又要對我咁多資料咧？咁所以咧就打電話俾我哋。咁當然啦，我哋收到電話之後咧，亦都話俾呢位男士聽咧，其實呢個咧應該就係一個詐騙電話。咁我哋亦都話俾呢位男士聽咧，就唔好將自己嘅個人資料咧，就隨便俾呢個電話嘅電話來電者啦。因為如果佢有問題嘅咧，佢就應該同來電者咧嘅機構去揾翻嗰個機構去核實翻呢個來電者嘅身份啦，就唔好話隨便將佢嘅個人資料俾來電者啦。第三個個案啦，第三個個案咧就係一個投訴嘅個案。咁就係正咧係有關一個物業管理公司嘅。咁投訴咧就話呢個物業管理公司咧就係公開張貼一份咧係有多名員工嘅個人資料嘅通告。咁呢個個人資料咧就包括員工嘅中英文名啦、員工編號啦、佢個職位啦，同埋佢嗰個檢測報告嗰個結果，即係陽性啊，因為陰性。咁呢個咧就喺公眾地方咧係黏咗出嚟。咁當然啦，員工就有員工非常不滿啦，亦都係好擔心啦，咁就嚟咗私隱公署投訴。咁我哋投訴嘅時候咧，我哋介入嘅時候咧，其實有關嘅通告咧就已經係被移除㗎啦。 物業管理公司咧就已經係移除咗相關嘅公告。咁我哋咧但係咁咧，我哋都出信係向呢個物業管理公司咧係提醒翻佢哋咧有關私隱條例嘅要求，同埋咧佢哋係要好小心咁樣處理員工嘅個人資料。咁去到呢個環節咧，就係有關呢個銀行公會嘅調查報告。咁呢個咧就係一個資料外泄事故嘅。咁或者咧，我請郭正熙處理首席個人資料主任咧，係介紹呢個環節咧。
唔該晒專員。好，跟住落嚟有請我哋合規及查詢部處理首席個人資料主任郭正熙先生，為我哋介紹一份調查報告同埋一份有關資料保障措施嘅單張。May we now invite our Acting Chief Personal Data Officer of our Compliance and Inquiries Division, Mr. Brett Kwok, to present an investigation report and introduce a new leaflet on data security. Mr. Kwok, please.
喂 ，OK， 好，先唔該專員啦。咁以下落嚟嘅環節咧，我就會去介紹一個資料外泄事故嘅調查報告，有關於香港銀行學會嘅個事件背景係點樣咧？我哋公署咧就收到學會嘅資料外泄事故通報啦，指佢哋名下咧有6個嘅伺服器個 server 咧就係遭勒索軟件嘅攻擊同埋惡意嘅加密嘅。咁喺呢個事件裏邊咧，受影響嘅人士咧，包括佢哋13000名嘅會員啦，同埋大約咧10萬名嘅非會員。咁啊，個人資料受影響嘅咧，包括咗有佢哋嘅姓名啦、聯絡資料啦、僱主名稱同埋職位，亦都有部分人士嘅身份證號碼啦、信用卡號碼啦、出生日期啦、專業認證嘅詳情啦，同埋佢哋嘅考試結果嘅。咁我哋睇睇當其時事件發生嗰個情況係咩咧？咁根據我哋嘅調查攞到嘅資料咧，就係話2018年嘅時候咧，學會咧安裝同埋啟用咗一個嘅防火牆，一路用都冇問題嘅。咁直到咧2019年5月嘅時候咧，防火牆嗰個生產商咧喺佢哋嘅網站嗰度咧就發出咗一個保安建議，就話留意到咧有黑客咧披露咗呢個作業系統有個漏洞，咁而攻擊人士咧係可以利用呢個漏洞咧繞過有關嘅保安限制咧，直接取得一個保密插口層虛擬私有網絡，咁我簡稱咧叫 SSL VPN 嘅帳戶名稱同埋密碼咧，咁喺攞到呢個透過繞過呢個漏洞之後咧，就可以執行任何嘅程式嘅。咁當其時咧，呢個生產商咧就呼籲所有嘅 user 啦，就去停止使用呢個 SSL VPN 嘅功能，直到咧去更新咗有關嘅作業系統啦，同埋重設所有帳戶密碼之後先好用。同時咧，亦都建議翻用家咧去啟用多重嘅認證嘅。咁直到2021年啦1月嘅時候咧，因為疫情啦，咁學會咧就推行咗呢個 work from home 一個在家工作嘅安排，咁亦都啟用咗呢個防火牆嘅SSL VPN 功能啦，俾有需要嘅同事啦嘅員工啦，可以喺在家工作期間咧去遙距登入個系統嘅。但係咧，佢啟用呢個功能嘅時候咧，佢事前咧就冇修補到相關嘅漏洞。咁直到啦2021年尾啦12月30號嘅時候咧，佢哋嘅前線員工咧就發現呢6台嘅伺服器咧就冇辦法正常嘅存取。除咗呢啲嘅伺服器之外咧，佢哋亦都發現到咧，佢哋嘅電腦同埋一啲嘅備份數據咧，亦都係遭勒索軟件嘅加密嘅。咁然後咧，佢哋就向我哋作出咗個通報啦。咁喺我哋嘅調查過程當中啦，咁學會咧對事件咧向我哋作出咗主要有2個解釋嘅。第一個解釋係咩咧？佢就話防火牆咧係由佢哋嘅服務供應商咧負責去維護、去保養嘅。咁而佢哋同埋個服務供應商咧，直到事件發生之前咧，都係唔知道有相關嘅漏洞嘅。另外啦，咁佢哋亦都從來都冇接獲過咧個服務供應商咧係通知需要為呢個防火牆咧安裝任何嘅修補程式。另外啦，喺我哋嘅調查裏邊咧，學會亦都向我哋承認咗啦，喺事件發生之前咧，佢哋係未曾對所有連接到互聯網嘅伺服器啦、應用程式啦，或者一啲端點嘅裝置咧進行有漏洞掃描嘅。咁即係所以其實就乜嘢都冇做到啦。咁然後咧，佢亦都話啦，服務供應商咧亦都冇建議佢哋去咁樣做嘅。 咁當我哋調查嘅過程裏邊啦，我哋睇翻晒所有嘅證據啦，咁我哋就發現啦，就認為呢個事件咧源於咧學會咧係未有制定一個修補程式嘅管理程序，導致咧就冇為到受影響嘅系統咧安裝修補程式，而黑客正正就利用咗呢個相關嘅漏洞咧，去攞到呢個 SSL VPN 嘅賬戶名稱啦、密碼啦，然後攞到呢個系統管理員嘅權限，就執行咗呢個勒索軟件啦，導致佢哋能夠成功加密到呢6台嘅伺服器。另一方面啦，我哋都認為啦，學會咧係未有為 SSL VPN 咧啟用呢個多重認證，去加強呢個系統嘅保安嘅。而呢個正正就係當其時生產商又建議到用家要咁樣做嘅。好，咁根據我哋所有嘅調查所得嘅證據啦，同埋資料啦，咁我哋認為咧，學會咧喺個資料保安嘅意識啦，同埋佢哋嘅保安措施上邊咧係有所不足嘅。咁主要會係有3點。第一點啦，就係話佢資料保安風險嘅管理咧係欠佳嘅。學會咧係未有制定咧任何呢個修補程式嘅管理程序啦，亦都導致到冇及時去修補個保安漏洞，令到黑客啦頭先所講啦，就係成功透過呢個漏洞咧入侵到系統啦，加密咗嗰6台嘅伺服器。咁第二點啦，就係話資訊系統咧嘅管理咧又欠妥善嘅。佢哋嘅滲透測試咧，即係個 penetration test 咧，個涵蓋面係唔足夠㗎，而系統欠缺咧有效嘅防毒軟件，導致咧其實成個系統咧唔能夠去抵禦一啲黑客利用勒索軟件嘅攻擊嘅情況㗎。咁另外啦，亦都佢哋對個服務提供者咧採取一個相對寬鬆嘅態度咧，比較依賴個服務提供者咧去維護佢哋成個嘅系統，咁導致咧就有呢個問題啦。咁最後第3點啦，就係佢哋未有適時去啟用一個多重認證功能啦，冇跟到防火牆生產商嘅建議，喺推行呢個在家工作安排嘅之前咧，去實施一個多重認證，咁啊導致咧呢個黑客咧能夠利用呢個漏洞咧去攻擊到個系統嘅。咁當我哋因此啦，我哋就認為咧學會係違反咗個人資料私隱條例保障資料原則第4.1原則有關個人資料保安嘅規定嘅。咁因應佢哋違反咗呢個規定咧，咁我哋喺完成咗調查之後咧，亦都發出咗一個執行通知，而執行通知裏邊有4點要求佢哋糾正翻佢哋嘅違規情況嘅。咁你會見到呢度啦，4點。第一點就係要求佢哋徹底檢視翻佢哋再有個人資料嘅系統保安，確保呢啲嘅系統咧係冇再有已知嘅惡意軟件或者任何嘅保安漏洞嘅。第二點啦，就係要聘請翻獨立嘅資料保安專家對學會嘅系統保安咧定期進行呢個檢視同埋審核。第3點，亦都要求佢哋修訂佢哋嘅系統保安政策，明確咁定明咧學會對佢哋嘅網絡設備啦，包括防火牆啦或者一啲伺服器咧，定期進行呢個漏洞嘅掃描。最後啦，第4點，要求佢哋修訂系統保安政策，明確咁定咧修補程式嘅管理政策同埋要求，亦都要採取一啲嘅措施咧，確保員工同埋佢哋提供系統保養服務嘅服務提供者咧，依循有關嘅要求同埋政策嘅情況嘅。好啦，喺我哋今次嘅調查裏邊啦，即係除咗發出咗個執行通知俾佢哋之外咧，咁我哋亦都對業界即係相關嘅資料使用者咧提出一啲嘅6點嘅建議嘅。包括係咩咧？第一就係應該要提高警覺啦，佢哋應該係定時咧進行一個風險評估，防止受到黑客嘅攻擊。第二點啦，亦都需要設立一個個人資料私隱管理系統。第3點，咁我哋都一路都係建議㗎啦，就係委任一個專責人員咧，作為一個保障資料主任，去 oversee 晒成個佢哋嘅個人資料系統係點樣去運作同埋處理個人資料嘅情況啦。第4點啦，就應該係提升一個資訊系統管理嘅情況，去制定一啲有效嘅修補程式管理程序啦，去適時咁去修補有關嘅漏洞同埋個情況啦。第5點啦，除咗提升個管理系統嘅保安啦，咁亦都應該咧確實咁去執行一個數據備份啦，將有關嘅 data 咧定時咁樣去 backup 翻去備份翻啦。最後啦，第6點就係妥善監督服務供應者啦，即係話我哋唔可以單純咁去依賴一啲服務供應者俾我哋嘅服務啦，咁我哋都要制定喺服務合約裏邊咧定明一啲相關嘅保安要求，尤其一個資料保安嘅要求啦。有關 今次呢個調查嘅報告咧，咁我嘅分享去到呢度啦。咁另外一部分啦，咁啊因應翻頭先專員都有介紹過啦，喺我哋舊年2022年8月嘅時候咧，我哋發出咗一個資訊及通訊科技資料保安措施指引。咁正因為咧，我哋而家發現到啦，受資料外泄事故影響嘅市民嘅數量咧係越嚟越多，我哋可以喺個 bar chart 呢度見到咧，2021年可能我哋見到因為資料外泄事故影響啦，可能嘅人香港市民咧可能係講緊60萬，咁但係咧去到2022年嘅時候咧已經係飆升到超過100萬㗎啦，嗰個增幅咧係超過咗有差唔多60%嘅。咁所以我哋見到有呢個情況咧，咁我哋咧尤其亦都見到有個新常態，就可能會有在家工作啦、遙距學習啦，亦都運用呢個資訊科技嘅情況越嚟越普及嘅時候咧，我哋見到咧就係收到外泄事故通報咧，有接近有成30% 咧都係黑客入侵嘅事故嚟㗎。咁有見及此咧，咁當然我哋當初2022年8月出嗰個指引咧，係一個好詳細嘅指引，裏邊介紹咗好多有關嘅保安建議措施嘅情況，亦嘅 tips 或者我哋嘅要求啦。咁我哋今次咧就再推出咗一份咧係濃縮版，咁呢份咧一個指引嘅單張。咁呢個單張裏邊咧會係濃縮同埋凸顯翻咧各項資料保安建議裏邊嘅重點嘅。咁其實咧亦都方便翻資料使用者啦，尤其一啲中小企啦，去容易啲去理解我哋嗰個指引嘅內容。咁所以我哋咧今日咧就發出咗呢個嘅單張㗎。咁喺呢個單張裏邊咧，我哋會為資料保安措施啦提供相關嘅建議同埋良好嘅行事方式。咁亦都協助佢哋咧可以去加強翻資料保安系統，去減低有關嘅資料外泄嘅風險，亦都係協助佢哋啦去遵從翻我哋個人資料私隱條例嘅一啲嘅規定嘅。好啦，簡單咁介紹一下我哋單張裏邊嘅要求啦，其實就同指引裏邊一樣嘅。咁我哋係有7大嘅建議措施，咁包括係啲咩呢？第一就係一個資料管治同埋機構性嘅措施啦，裏邊我哋會建議機構啦去委任翻適合嘅人員啦，個人資料主任啦，同埋亦都係要提供翻合適同埋足夠嘅培訓俾翻啲員工啦。第二部分啦，喺機構咧，如果去推行一個新系統嘅時候，或者係一路運作緊佢哋嘅系統咧，係定時要去做一個風險評估。第三啦，喺技術上同埋操作上面一啲嘅保安措施啦，包括佢哋就一個佢哋嘅網絡啦、應用程式啦，甚至係一啲嘅device 啦，去點樣去做保護啦、加密啦、備份咧，我哋都有一啲嘅建議嘅指引俾佢哋㗎。咁第四啦，就係話佢哋應該亦都要去用合約嘅規範形式咧去處理，亦都去管理翻資料處理者嘅情況。第五啦，當有發生一個資料保安事故嘅時候咧，有啲咩嘅補救措施咧，我哋都有建議喺裏邊俾到佢哋嘅。咁最後啦，咁第六就係一啲定期嘅監察啦、評估啦同埋改善啦，去 update 翻佢哋自己嘅保安措施。最後啦，包括一啲其他嘅考慮啦，就可能講緊係一啲而家最常用嘅一啲雲端嘅服務啦，或者自攜裝置啦，咁佢哋嘅應該有應用嘅保安措施會係啲乜嘢？咁亦都會喺個單張裏邊，我哋有介紹到嘅。咁咧，我今日嘅分享咧，暫時就去到呢度啦。咁我將個時間咧，再交翻俾專員。唔該大家。
唔該晒郭主任。好，我哋而家有請我哋專員為我哋做一個簡單嘅英文總結。May we now invite our Privacy Commissioner to recap some key points of today's media briefing in English. Ms. Chung, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I will now move on to the second part of the presentation, which will be conducted in English. I first covered inquiries. For inquiries received by my office, the PCPD, we received over 14,000 inquiries from the public last year. And this means that on average, we handled about 1,200 inquiries per month and around 60 to 70 inquiries per day. And of these inquiries on the collection and use of personal data, including, for example, Hong Kong identity card numbers and copies, accounted for about 28% of the total. And the other major categories included the application of privacy ordinance, the handling of personal data in employment cases, and also our complaint handling policy. So that is the position for inquiries. And in view of the rising trend of data fraud cases, we set up a personal data fraud prevention hotline in September last year to handle inquiries or complaints from members of the public in relation to suspected personal data fraud cases. And the hotline from September to December received 168 calls. And for the whole year, we received 707 inquiries from the public relating to personal data frauds. This represented an increase of 26% year on year. And I believe that it is a substantial increase, and which deserve attention from us. And that is why for the coming year, for this year, we have plans to increase our promotion and publicity efforts in this area. Complaints. For complaints, you will see from this graph that the number of complaints which we received last year increased by about 15% when we compare the figure to that of last year. And I would say it is mainly attributable to an increase in the number of doxing cases handled by us, apparently because of the increased publicity and promotion efforts made by us after the implementation of the new anti-doxing regime. And this graph shows you the top 5 private sectors being complained against. And the ranking is in terms of the number of complaints lodged against the particular sector. You'll see that property management sector tops the list, followed by banking and finance, telecommunications, retail, and insurance. And apparently, for the property management sector, more complaints were filed against the sector because they handled a huge amount of personal data relating to residents and also visitors during the pandemic. And this included cases, for example, the collection and the use or the retention of personal data in mass distribution events. And they kept the data even after the event was over. And this, of course, also included the collection of personal data from visitors to the buildings, including workers who visited the building, and also delivery workmen who delivered all sorts of stuff to the buildings. Compliance checks. For compliance checks, in 2022, last year, we initiated 392 compliance checks, and this represented a 4% increase year on year. And for last year, we received 105 data breach notifications, with 41 from the public sector and 64 from the private sector. And you can see from the pie chart to the left of this slide that the incidents were caused by the hacking and also loss of documents or portable devices. Actually, for these two together, they amounted for more than half of the total number of cases. And the other causes included inadvertent disclosure of personal data by fax or email, employee misconduct, or system misconfiguration. Handling of doxing cases. From the implementation of the amendment ordinance in 2021 to the end of last year, we handled a total of 2,128 doxing cases. And this included complaints lodged with my office and also cases discovered by us proactively through the online patrol. The nature of the cases reported to the PCPD. This pie chart shows you that a huge amount of cases related to monetary dispute. And this category accounted for 28% of the total. Similarly, family and relationship dispute accounted for more or less the same percentage, 27%. And for work dispute and political dispute, each of them accounted for 14% of the total number of cases. For this period, from October 2021, since the implementation of the amendment ordinance to the end of December last year, we initiated 114 criminal investigations. And we referred 32 cases which involved the commission of other crimes or the more serious doxing offenses to the police for further investigation. As to arrest operations, we mounted a total of 12 arrest operations. One in 2021, in December of that year, about 2 months after the implementation of the amendment ordinance, and 11 in 2022 last year. And actually, for the 11 arrest operations carried out last year, one was carried out in May as a joint operation with the police. And in the 12 arrest operations, a total of 12 suspects were arrested. And for the arrest cases, the 12 arrest cases, we've laid charges in 5 of the cases, with 2 defendants convicted up to the end of December. Actually, if I talk about up to this particular moment, 3 defendants were already convicted. And there was 1 sentencing case back in December last year, in which the defendant was sentenced to 8 months imprisonment. I would say we welcome the first sentencing case because the sentence signified the seriousness of the doxing offense. And for anyone who commits the offense, he or she will be liable to immediate custodial sentence. And I think this first sentencing case sends a strong signal to the community that doxing is a serious offense. And for the other prosecution cases, they are still undergoing the judicial process. So I will not make any further comments on that. Cessation notice. As you may recall, under the amendment ordinance, the Privacy Commissioner is empowered to issue cessation notice to anyone who is able to take down doxing message. And that is why for this period, up to the end of December, we issued a total of 1,500 cessation notices to 26 platforms. And we request the removal of over 1,700 doxing messages. And I'm very happy to inform you that the compliance rate is over 90%, notwithstanding that most cessation notices were issued to the operators of platforms operated overseas. I will now move on to the investigation report on the data breach incident in relation to the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers. The investigation arose from a data breach notification which we received from the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers, Hong Kong IB, informing us that 6 servers of the Hong Kong IB, which contain personal data, had been hacked by ransomware and was maliciously encrypted. And the personal data of over 13,000 members of Hong Kong IB and also 100,000 non-members of the Institute were affected. And apart from the individuals' names, the contact information, names of the employers and also their positions, some individuals' identity card numbers and credit card numbers were also leaked. As a result of our investigation after following findings, I'm of the opinion that the incident was caused by Hong Kong IB's failure to patch a vulnerability in its system. And this is because of the lack of patch management procedures in the institute, which allow the hacker to exploit the relevant vulnerability, get hold of the VPN's account names and also the passwords. And using these account names and passwords, the hacker intruded into the system and obtained the administration rights of the system, therefore by enabling the hacker to execute ransomware and succeeded in encrypting the entire servers. And we are talking about 6 servers in total. And the other cause of the incident was that Hong Kong IB, the institute, did not enable the multi-factor authentication for the VPN to enhance system security. Because if it had enabled the multi-factor authentication, it would not be so easy for the hacker to get access to the system through obtaining the usernames and also the passwords. As a result, I concluded that the Hong Kong IB contravened Data Protection Principle 4 as regards the security of personal data, namely that it had failed to take practicable steps to protect the personal data involved from unauthorized or accidental access, processing, erasure, loss, or use. And I also find that there were serious deficiencies in 3 particular aspects: inadequacies in the management of data security risks, in particular, the lack of a patch management system and procedures, deficiencies in the information system management, and also prolonged implementation of the multi-factor authentication, which I have mentioned just now. So, so much for the investigation report. I've now moved on to the question and answer section, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
好，唔該晒專員。跟住落嚟會係我哋嘅答問時間。大家如果有問題嘅話，可以先舉手，我哋有同事會交個咪俾你哋。麻煩各位記者先就今日嘅記者會嘅內容去發問，之後再就其他議題發問。請各位喺發問之前，首先講俾我聽你嘅名同埋傳媒機構。So now we open the floor for questions. If you have any questions, kindly focus on the content of today's media briefing first before asking questions about other topics. Please raise your hand and let us know your name and organization before asking questions. 好，或者前面粉紅色衫呢位女士先，同埋嗰邊情報嗰邊。
係，你好啊，專員 TVB 㗎。咁首先就想問翻頭先香港銀行學會嗰度咧，其實係咪淨係發出咗呢一個嘅執行通知？即係有冇話其實學會入邊係有其他人係需要負責任啦？同埋目前即係頭先講到嗰差唔多十幾萬名嘅學會嘅會員同埋非會員嘅資料，其實而家係咪都仲係即係儲存咗喺黑客嘅伺服器入邊？其實定係已經係移除咗嘅咧？咁另外就想問翻啦，其實因為知道早前公署都因為電影《給19歲的我》啦，其實已經主動係聯絡咗呢一個英華嘅女學校。其實目前了解成點咧？即係初步有冇啲乜嘢調查嘅進展啦？咁同埋都想問翻點樣平衡法理情嗰方面啦，即係喺法律啊、保護私隱啊同埋維護學校同埋製作團隊同埋女生嘅權益，其實會點樣取一個平衡咧？唔該。
好多謝問題，或者我答咗香港銀行學會嘅問題先啦，因為頭先同事都講咗，我諗我哋首先我都知大家有好多問題問嘅，咁我哋講咗今日我哋嗰個工作報告嘅問題先，好冇？咁有關銀行學會咧係啱嘅，呢位同事講得係相當啱嘅。就我哋係出咗個執行通知嘅，我哋係要求銀行學會咧係將佢嗰個整體嗰個資訊科技嘅保安咧係提升嘅。咁特別咧係需要有一啲政策啦同埋程序啦，係就住嗰個保安系統嘅弱點咧就要提升嘅。咁呢個我哋係做咗嘅。咁我哋係要求銀行學會咧係喺2個月之內咧係提交翻佢哋嘅報告俾我哋，係確保佢哋嗰個學會嗰個個人資料儲存咧係符合我哋嘅要求。咁至於話 嗰個黑客嗰啲資料點樣咧？咁呢個咧就我哋咧就唔係我哋嘅調查範圍啦，因為呢個資料咧就睇起上嚟咧，黑客係已經攞咗一啲資料。咁銀行學會咧就係亦都俾咗一個佢哋獨立嘅資訊保安顧問嘅報告俾我哋睇嘅。咁我哋亦都睇咗嗰個報告。咁而我哋調查咧，主要係針對銀行學會點解會有資料外泄啦，同埋佢嗰個資訊保安系統係可以點樣提升咯。咁至於其他嘅問題咧，我或者打陣間係一併回答。唔該晒。學會入邊咧，當然咧，我哋嗰個執行通知咧係俾學會嘅。咁喺學會嚟講咧，佢就邊位係管理呢個學會、負責呢個學會嘅決策咧，其可能係成個佢個理事會都係需要負責任咯。
係你好，明報嘅兩方面嘅問題。首先想問下咧，就住嗰個起底嘅投訴啦，咁見到舊年同前年比較咧，無論係即係嗰個比例上面啦，又或者即係實數上都有個上升。想問下其實嗰個原因係啲乜嘢啦？咁即係同第五波疫情啊，咁同呢啲起底之間個即係關聯又係啲乜嘢咧？同埋就住即係整個條例實施以嚟咧，專員你又點樣評價嗰個嘅即係落實嘅成效咧？咁另一方面咧，就想問翻嗰個嘅停止披露一啲個人資料嘅通知啦。咁舊年中咧，就據了解，其實公署都發過3000幾個呢啲停止披露個人資料嘅訊息啦。咁當中就即係大部分其實就係俾 Telegram 嘅。咁甚至咧就話，即係當時公署就話會研究停止市民去瀏覽相關嘅資訊啦。想問下，其實即係最尾有冇執行到呢個第 66L 嘅條例啦？咁公署同 Telegram 了解嗰個情況又點？咁同埋其實日後遇到呢啲情況嘅時候，喺嗰個資訊自由啊同埋執法力度方面又點樣即係攞個平衡咧？唔該。
好多謝呢位朋友嘅問題。咁第一條問題咧就係我哋起底嗰個處理嘅個案咧就係有上升嘅。咁呢個咧就我覺得都係好正常嘅，因為我哋係新條例之下咧就係有新嘅權力啦。咁所以咧特別譬如話係喺發出呢個停止披露通知書方面咧，以前我哋就冇咁嘅權力嘅。咁而家我哋咧就有咁嘅權力，咁所以我哋嗰個權力咧係做多咗呢一方面嘅個案啦。咁另外咧，亦都係頭先我亦都有講到咧，就係因為我哋有一系列嘅宣傳同埋推廣嘅活動咧，咁變咗咧市民咧係知道佢哋嘅權益啦，知道何謂起底啦，咁變咗咧係佢哋嘅投訴數字咧係我哋收到嘅，亦都係多咗嘅。咁呢個我相信咧就係因為呢兩方面嘅原因啦。咁同疫情咧，我諗就冇咩直接相關啦，即係起底嘅活動。咁至於個成效咧，我會總結嚟講咧，係覺得係呢個修訂條例2021年10月實施以嚟咧，係成效係顯著嘅。咁我哋嗰個工作咧，亦都係有好顯著嘅成果嘅。咁至於嗰個停止披露通知咧，其實喺任何平台上高咧，係有任何嘅起底信息咧，我哋都係會致力咧係移除呢啲信息，亦都係會第一時間發覺咗之後咧，就會發出咗呢個移除通知書。因為起底嘅信息咧係留喺呢個網上咧，係對受害人嘅影響咧係好嚴重同埋好持久嘅。咁所以我哋咧都係會第一時間移除。咁而喺過去嗰年咧，我哋睇到嗰個成效咧係有啲頻道咧就唔淨止係移除一個起底信息，或者甚至係整個頻道都移除咗。咁所以咧，如果係有咁嘅情況，即係我哋執法已經有成效嘅話咧，我哋就唔需要係進一步咧再考慮更進一步嘅行動啦。個別嘅頻道咧，我就唔想喺呢度評論，因為咧始終係涉及一啲執法嘅工作。咁但係咧，我可以話俾大家聽咧，其實我哋嗰個執法嘅行動咧，係除咗移除起底嘅信息之外咧，亦都有要求一啲頻道一啲平台咧，係成個起底頻道都移除嘅。咁要視乎佢嗰個頻道咧，係咪一個起底嘅頻道啦？
係專員，喂 testing 係專員你好，情報記者。其實就都想問翻少少關於起底嘅問題嗰度啦。咁其實就即係我投訴個增幅大咗，你頭先亦都講咗，即係個原因係點樣？咁但係就即係你覺得係話即係需要交去俾警方處理嘅數字，其實算唔算多咧？咁唔係即係唔需要交去警方處理嗰啲，其實當中係涉及到幾多呢啲嚴重個案咁咧？另外就係其他投訴方面咧，就其實頭先都有講到話，即係即係睇到個查詢個數字，亦都有下跌啦。即係不論投訴同查詢嘅數字都係跌啦。咁其實係關市民個意識係好咗有關啦，定係話即係嗰啲增幅其實係轉移咗去新設嘅嗰個即係嗰個防騙嗰個熱線嗰度，係啲人如果覺得係話即係自己可能受騙嘅，就直接打去嗰度咁樣，咁所以就顯得話即係其他嗰啲投訴或者查詢嘅數字跌咗咧。唔該。
多謝你嘅問題。咁首先講翻嗰個起底嘅個案啦。咁喺2021年10月啦，去到12月尾啦，即係2022年12月尾啦，我哋係就住114宗咧係展開呢個刑事調查。咁而當係有32宗咧，我哋係轉介咗俾警方係繼續跟進嘅。咁我覺得轉介俾警方繼續跟進嘅個案咧，其實係唔算多嘅，即係整體嚟講唔算多。咁點解我哋要轉介俾警方繼續跟進咧？就因為咧嗰個個案咧有可能係涉及一啲其他嘅罪行，即係唔關私隱條例嘅事嘅。譬如佢係有不誠實使用電腦啊，或者係詐騙啊，或者甚至其他更加嚴重嘅罪行，刑事恐嚇啊咁樣。咁至於係比較嚴重嘅起底罪行咧，呢個咧因為喺修訂條例之下咧，如果係比較嚴重嘅起底罪行咧，我哋都係需要係轉介俾警方去跟進同埋考慮檢控嘅。咁所以咧係跟翻個條例咁做啦。咁至於查詢嘅個案咁樣，查詢嘅個案咧其實係有一個下幅嘅喺舊年嚟講咧係有下降嘅。咁我相信呢個咧就可能同社會嘅氣氛啦，整體嘅氣氛係平和咗啦，咁有關嘅。咁我哋收到嘅查詢咧，其實同我哋2021年嗰個性質大概都差唔多。咁但係咧就2021年2020年咧，我哋就收到比較多嘅，譬如有關填紙仔進入呢個餐廳或者係去個檢測報告咁嗰啲安排咁嗰類查詢都多嘅。咁變咗喺舊年嚟講咧，呢一類查詢咧就少咗，因為始終疫情都已經3年啦，咁同埋有一啲安排咧亦都冇咗，咁所以我哋睇到咧就似乎呢個咧就係嗰個查詢嗰個下跌嘅主要原因啦。
係唔該，有線新聞嘅，咁咧喺停止披露通知嗰度咧，想問下其實邊個平台係佔最多咧？咁咧其實有1成係冇遵從到嘅，係點解咧？主要涉及邊啲平台同埋即係會點樣跟進咧？會唔會有刑責咧？
好多謝你呢個問題。咁呢個咧就亦都係牽涉個別平台咧，就因為始終涉及嗰個執法嘅工作咧，我就唔方便進一步披露。咁整體上嚟講咧，嗰個遵從率咧係超過90%嘅。咁呢個都係一個非常鼓舞嘅數字嚟嘅。咁至於譬如話大概嗰1成到咁點樣咧？嗰1成到咧，其實我哋都係一路有跟進嘅。譬如咧就係出警告信啦。另外咧，如果係出警告信再唔聽嘅話咧，我哋甚至咧係有聯絡一啲海外嘅對口單位，係進一步跟進呢啲個案。咁我哋亦都見到有一啲個案咧，其實我哋係出埋警告信，咁佢都仲係冇移除呢個相關嘅信息嘅時候咧，我哋咧就係會聯絡翻當地嘅對口單位，就向佢咧係反映呢件即係呢件事啦。咁而有關嘅信息咧，好快就已經移除咗啦。咁樣，咁所以我哋覺得咧嗰個成效都係比較好嘅。或者後邊啦，後邊睇唔到嚇，嗰位着黑衫嘅女仔。
Hello, questions from RTHK English News.
Yes.
Can you elaborate more on the relationship between the implementation of anti-doxing regime and a rise in complaints, and how would you assess the effectiveness of the regime so far? And secondly, on the data breach incident of the Hong Kong Institute of Bankers, what could have done better and what would be the penalties? And later, can you also talk about the follow-up actions about the privacy issues of the documentary To My 19-Year-Old Self? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. As I've said before, I think we'll try to concentrate on the questions relating to our report today first. For the other questions, we can deal with them all together later. Thank you. And the first question relates to the implementation of the new anti-doxing regime and its relationship with the number of inquiries and complaints. I would say that since the implementation of the new anti-doxing regime, apparently this has led to an increase in the number of doxing-related complaints filed with us. This is because we have carried out a series of promotion and publicity and also educational activities in relation to the new anti-doxing regime. As a result, we believe that members of the public have a better sense and they do understand more about the new doxing offense. And that is why they file more complaints with us, leading to an increase in the number of doxing-related complaints. For the data breach case in relation to Hong Kong Institute of Bankers, as I have said, we have already issued enforcement notice to the institute, requesting it to take measures to enhance its information system security, including, for example, to put in place a patch management procedure and also a policy. And if the institute is in breach of this enforcement notice, it would be committing a criminal offense under the ordinance. And for commission of this sort of criminal offense, it attracts a penalty of 50,000 fine and also 2 years imprisonment. And for the other question, I think I'll deal with the other questions in the last session of this questions and answer section. Thank you.
Good afternoon from HKIBC. Regarding the anti-doxing ordinance that taken effect last year, has it fulfilled the watchdog's expectations, and what are the main difficulties that the office has encountered? And as well as you mentioned that more than 90% of the doxing acts are conducted through social media platforms. Do you think the public actually has sufficient awareness towards the possible leakage of their data, and in what ways can the public be more cautious when using social media? And regarding the investigation report conducted towards HKIB, it claimed that the service provider is responsible for maintenance work of the firewall, despite the provider said they weren't aware of the deficiencies. In this incident, does the service provider have to bear any consequences because the enforcement notice is only targeting at HKIB? And sorry, one last question is that for the notices of removal that you issue to the website operators, and what are the reasons why are as in like you issued the notice to remove, sorry. Notice.
Maybe I should deal with your first three questions first.
How about I'll follow up later? Yeah.
Thank you. The new anti-doxing regime, did it fulfill our expectations or meet our expectations? I would say yes, it did meet our expectations. And we would say it turns out to be more effective than we have anticipated. Because for overseas platforms, they also comply with the cessation notices which we issued. And if we're talking about difficulties in the in our enforcement work, I would say that would relate to the nature of doxing messages themselves. Because we noticed that even though we have issued cessation notices in some cases, the doxing messages appear time and time again. And so we have to repeat the entire cycle. And we have to issue the cessation notices again to request the removal of the relevant doxing message. So this is one of the major difficulties which we encountered in the enforcement work. And for awareness of the public, I do believe that, and actually I noticed that the public has a better sense of the protection of their personal data online since the implementation of the new doxing regime. This is reflected in the fact that more complaints have been filed with our office, and we also received some inquiries from the public saying that is this doxing, and I believe that this is because of our series of publicity and promotional efforts, because we have carried out a series of seminars, both online and face-to-face, to introduce the new requirements to members of the public, and also to introduce the new doxing offense to them. And that is why their awareness has increased, and so they have filed more complaints with us. And for Hong Kong IB, whether the service provider is liable, I think that is a very good question. However, please remember that under the PDPO, under the ordinance, the party who is responsible for the handling of data is the data user. And therefore, in our enforcement work, we would issue the enforcement notice to the data user. And the primary and the prime responsibility rests on the data user as well. If there is any default in the handling of personal data, including the holding, the processing of, or the use of personal data, it is the data user who will be liable under the ordinance. And that is why we have issued our enforcement notice to Hong Kong IB instead of the service provider. Thank you.
Hi, I'm from South China Morning Post. Just on the doxing, on the under what
用中文都得嘅。
好
隨你。
即係想問起底嗰個咧，喺咩情況下先會考慮封成個平台？即係咪有考慮過呢樣嘢？即係唔點名都好，係咪舊年曾經考慮過想封晒成個平台？咁即係講清楚個條件啦。同埋第二樣嘢就係 HKIB 嗰度，其實個 timeline 寫住2021年12月已經發現咗。但係好似今年1月，你哋係咪先見到傳媒報導佢哋有呢件事？其實係咪而家仲有冇 pursue 緊嗰個強制通報機制？同埋如果有嘅話，你哋有咩計劃去推動嗰個強制嘅變成一個立法？唔該。
係講咗呢個 Hong Kong IB 嗰個問題啦嚇，嗰個Hong Kong IB 嗰個問題咧，就其實嗰個通報咧。佢哋係有通報我哋嘅，咁但係咧就我哋都需要時間調查，咁同埋咧係發表呢個報告，同埋因為喺個程序入邊咧，我哋亦都要再繼續咧係諮詢佢，因為我哋淨係問佢出信咧都問咗好多轉嘅，咁同埋我哋都要釐清一啲事實啦。咁至於嗰個強制性通報咧，呢個咧我哋係仍然係研究緊嘅。咁我哋咧就其實都會向政府咧係喺呢方面咧作出一啲建議嘅嚇。咁呢個咧我哋因為現時嚟講咧，可能大家傳媒朋友都知㗎啦。我哋咧就同政府咧係持續咁樣審視緊呢個私隱條例，係睇下有冇修訂嘅空間嘅。咁至於執法嘅工作，咁執法嘅工作咧就個別嘅個案，當然咧我係唔方便評論嘅。咁但係一般嚟講咧，就要視乎嗰個信息。係乜嘢類型嘅信息？如果佢唔係起底嘅信息咧，當然咧我哋係唔會係即係用私隱條例嚟執法啦。咁但係如果佢係一個起底嘅信息嘅話咧，我哋咧就而家有新嘅權力啦，就可以係執法，係開展呢個刑事調查啦，或者係發出呢個停止披露通知。咁嗰個停止披露通知嘅範圍係點樣咧？咁呢個就要視乎個別嘅情況啦。咁睇下呢個譬如呢個頻道係有幾多嘅起底信息咧？係得一個兩個啊，抑或係點咧？抑或係成個頻道都係起底嘅信息咧？咁如果係成個頻道都係起底嘅信息咧，我哋喺法例之下咧，我哋係有權咧係移除佢成個頻道，亦都有權咧係去要求呢個平台嘅營運商咧去移除成個頻道嘅。咁所以呢個咧就係法例賦予我哋嘅權力。喺個別個案嚟講咧，我就唔方便講啦，真係。個頻道 因為我哋都要睇下究竟嗰個情況係點樣。咁如果係一個頻道，佢係用嚟做起底嘅，成個頻道都係譬如係90幾個%都係起底嘅話咧，我哋係會考慮咧成個頻道都移除嘅。
Two questions from AFP. Current privacy laws provide exemptions for journalists in terms of holding and using personal data. Does PCPD support similar protections for journalists in terms of accessing and acquiring personal data? And in the current situation, when there are inconsistent rules in, for example, journalists getting personal data from the land registry, company registry for car licenses, and there's uncertainty there for news activity. Do you think PCPD thinks that situation is acceptable? My second question is, for the anti-doxing law, before it came into effect, certain foreign tech companies such as Facebook, Google, and Twitter have expressed concerns. Do you feel like in the year of this law's operation, do you think those concerns have been addressed? And what is PCPD's working relationship with these foreign tech companies?
Thank you for the two questions. I'll deal with the last question first. For the anti-doxing law, yes, as you rightly pointed out, some companies, they did have concerns when before the law was introduced. However, we met with the stakeholders in question and we explained the situation to them. And they actually agree that doxing should be stamped out. So on that basic principle, we are on common grounds. And for the and with the experience of the implementation over 1 year, I would say that we are very happy to notice that notwithstanding the implementation of the anti-doxing law, that has not affected normal and lawful business activities in Hong Kong. And that does not affect the freedom of speech and freedom of information that Hong Kong citizens currently enjoy, and which is also protected under the Basic Law of Hong Kong. So we are happy, very happy to see that. And on the question of the access of journalists to personal data, as you rightly pointed out, there is an exemption under the privacy ordinance on the work of journalism. And but that exemption is has specified conditions. It relates to the disclosure of information to a news business, and the disclosure has also to be in the public interest. So if the disclosure is not in the public interest, that will not be covered by the exemption. And I think you also have to be careful about the nature of the exemption, because it does not cover collection or access to personal data. For the collection of personal data, everyone, all sectors, they have to observe the requirements of the privacy law, in that the collection has to be lawful and fair. And also, they have to fulfill other requirements as specified in the law. So in terms of collection, when you're talking about whether there's any scope for journalism or journalists to have some further exemptions from the ordinance, I think that is an issue for the society to consider. But for the time being, I do not see any strong reason to amend the ordinance in this particular respect. I think when we talk about the privacy law, we have to talk about what is the existing law. The existing law requires everyone, including journalists, to obtain data or to collect personal data in a lawful and fair way. And we understand that in overseas jurisdictions, for example, the legal position is more or less the same. Even though you're a journalist, you cannot say obtain personal data by unlawful means or in an unfair way. That may incur criminal liability. And so our law in this particular regard reflects the development in overseas jurisdictions as well. So for the time being, I do not see any strong reason for reviewing the law in this particular aspect. Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner. This is Joyce Wampar. Good to see you again in person. So I want to clarify on the first thing on HKIB investigation. So the HKIB notified the PCPD in January 2022 after becoming aware of it in December 2021. And the second question is, you mentioned earlier that there were a total of 105 notifications received in 2022. So on average, how long?
Sorry, I missed your sentence.
Sorry.
The last sentence.
Oh, the last sentence was, you mentioned earlier there were a total of 105 data breach notifications received in 2022. So on average, how long did it take for this business entities or organizations notify the PCPD, say after the incident happened or after they became aware of such incident? And the last question is a little less relevant, but I want to ask, what's the latest for the WhatsApp and Shangri-La Group investigations? Are they still ongoing? Do you have an expected timeline to wrap up that investigations? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the 3 questions. For the Hong Kong IB case, they notified us in January 2022. And actually, the data breach incident happened in December 2021. And so they notified us in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks' time. 2 weeks. Brad reminded me that it's 2 weeks. 2 weeks' time. So there's actually not much problem with the notification because they have taken a bit of time to investigate into the incident and they may report to us right away. And for the 105 data breach notifications, as far as I can recall, most of them were lost on time. And we were notified of the breach within a very reasonable time within a reasonable time when the organization in question find out the breach. So there's no major problem there. As for the other 2 cases which you mentioned, I do not really want to touch on the details of the investigations of the progress of the cases, but I would say that one case has been concluded and the other case is still undergoing. One case has been concluded. The WhatsApp case has been concluded, and the other case is still ongoing. And we expect to finalize the other case probably in the first half of this year. But of course, that would depend on the cooperation on the other side, whether they provide us with all the relevant information in a timely manner or not. Yeah, and the clarifications which we need to make in the course of our investigation. Thank you. So 我諗時間差唔多啦。好啊。咁我知道大家都好關心呢個問題嘅嚇。咁或者大家有咩問題？
即係之前公署都就呢一個電影《給19歲的我》啦，咁就已經主動聯絡咗即係英華女學校啦。其實目前即係同學校嗰方面了解成點樣啊？即係初步有冇啲乜嘢嘅進展啊？即係溝通成點啊？同埋即係會點樣平衡法理情嗰方面，即係可能喺法律啊、保護私隱啊、製作團隊同埋同女仔個權益嗰方面點樣做一個平衡咧？係唔該。
好多謝呢兩個問題，咁就因應咧幾位當事人嘅意願咧，就已經係被廣泛嘅報導啦。咁私隱專員公署咧係非常關注呢件事嘅，尤其因為事件咧係涉及未成年人嘅個人資料私隱。咁而為咗保障相關同學嗰個個人資料私隱咧，我哋咧就已經係主動聯絡咗學校。咁了解事件嘅詳情， 同埋搜集一啲同個案相關嘅資料。咁我哋咧就已經係出咗信俾學校嘅。咁而家咧就係等緊學校嘅回覆。咁至於第二條問題咧，就係點樣平衡法咧？咁我哋嘅出發點咧，其實喺私隱公署嚟講咧，就唔論係長幼，每個人嘅個人資料私隱咧，都應該係得到呢個保障同埋尊重嘅。咁我哋相信咧，如果大家係可以係尊重其他人嘅個人資料私隱，佢哋個私人方面嘅私隱啊，咁事情咧就係可以係得到解決嘅。咁至於點樣平衡法理情方面嘅考慮咧，我覺得咧呢個咧就最好留翻俾有關嘅機構去考慮啦。
係，你好，經濟日報嘅。咁都係一啲跟進嘅問題啦。咁其實如果跟進咗之後，其實如果公署係認為套電影係違反咗一啲私隱條例嘅話，公署係會用啲咩方法去跟進啦？會唔會都建議即係永久取消放映咁樣咧？咁第二就係即係會唔會就一啲電影同紀錄片嘅拍攝手法會再作一啲指引咧？如果認為而家嘅指引同埋條例都已經足夠啦，咁今次嘅風波其實係咪應該定義為一個個別人士嘅一啲個別行為咁樣咧？
好多謝呢個問題。咁第一個問題咧，其實涉及咧就係呢個個案咧，其實有冇違反個人資料私隱條例？咁呢個咧就其實而家嚟講咧，因為我哋咧都係啱啱先出咗信俾有關嘅學校啦，咁亦都等緊佢哋嘅回覆。咁所以喺呢個階段咧，我就唔想就呢個個案咧係作出進一步嘅評論。咁至於話會唔會出指引咧？咁呢個當然咧，亦都要視乎我哋攞到嘅資料。咁我哋睇到嗰個確實嘅情況係點樣而定啦。咁如果有需要嘅咧，當然我哋係會唔排除咧係出一啲指引，係俾譬如學校啊，或者係甚至其他嘅團體去考慮啦。咁呢個我哋係唔排除係會咁做嘅。
Hi, from RTHK. Can you recap in English about the follow-up actions regarding the privacy issues of the documentary? And will the Privacy Office issue any guidelines in the future following the controversy? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Given the wide media coverage of the concerns of a number of data subjects, we are very concerned about the incident, especially because it involves the personal data privacy of minors. In order to protect the personal data privacy of the students in question, we have proactively taken the initiative to contact the school to collect information relating to the incident, to ascertain the facts of the case. And depending on the facts of the case and our further inquiries, we may issue guidance to the stakeholders on this particular issue. We cannot preclude doing that. Thank you.
有線新聞咧，咁即係啱啱就話，即係都等待緊校方嘅回應啦。咁但係即係譬如佢哋2012年簽嘅拍攝同意書，其實就即係都公開咗嘅。咁即係你哋有冇即係有睇過？會唔會覺得即係有違反私隱條例咧？咁另外咧，其實即係如果呢個同意書係即係當年係由家長去代簽啦，咁容許拍攝未成年人嘅生活私隱，然後個發布權咧就俾晒個製作團隊嘅。咁其實個做法有冇問題咧？會唔會話即係可能被拍攝嘅未成年人啦，或者成年後嘅當事人咧係有權作出反對咧？
好多謝呢條問題。咁其實有關合約嘅問題咧，或者同意書嘅問題咧，我就想指出咧，呢個係涉及一啲複雜嘅法律問題。除咗私隱條例嘅考慮之外咧，亦都有可能咧涉及一啲譬如合同法啦，或者係平衡法啦，即係 law of equity 嘅考慮嘅。咁我哋咧現時嚟講咧，因為我哋係出咗信啦俾學校，亦都等緊去回覆啦。咁 咁所以我喺呢度咧係不便係就住呢個事件咧係作出進一步嘅評論。咁我哋希望了解咗情況之後咧，就可以向雙方咧係提供一個適切嘅意見啦，就令到雙方喺保障同埋尊重個人資料私隱嘅大前提，同埋符合私隱條例要求嘅大前提之下咧，係可以圓滿解決事件嘅。咁如果你講到同意咧，其實係根據私隱條例咧，喺使用個人資料方面咧，就如果係睇返私隱條例保障資料嘅原則，第3個原則咧，如果係使用資料嗰個目的係有變，咁呢個咧就係需要係攞到當事人嘅訂明同意嘅。咁而訂明同意嚟講咧，喺條例之下咧，就係一個自願嘅，同埋係一個明確嘅同意。咁而喺條例之下咧，呢個同意咧，亦都係可以撤回㗎。咁呢個就純粹私隱條例嘅明文嘅條款係寫出嚟嘅。咁當然啦，喺每一個個案入邊咧，我哋都係要睇返個案嘅情況。咁考慮嘅咧，我相信唔淨止私隱條例嘅考慮，亦都有其他各方面嘅考慮。例如我頭先講嘅法律上其他法律嘅考慮啦。咁當然啦，人情上、情理上嘅考慮啦。咁呢個咧就當然要由當事人去作出一個判斷啦。仲有冇其他問題？如果冇嘅話咧，好多謝大家。
好，唔該晒專員。咁而家嚟到我哋今日記者會嘅尾聲啦。咁如果大家之後有啲咩問題，都可以聯絡我哋企業傳訊部嘅。咁再一次多謝大家出席，我哋都準備咗一啲輕食同埋飲品俾大家可以拎翻去享用嘅。多謝大家。Thanks everyone that closes our media briefing today. We've prepared some light news for you to take away. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
多謝晒大家，記得走嘅時候攞埋啲 snack。多謝晒。